All right, questions, comments? Anybody in person or online? Anyone?
Is it that he has so much of fear that he's in panic mode?
The question is, does Arjun have so much of fear that he's in panic mode? He's not afraid. Arjun is not, see, first and foremost, he's been trained for battle, right? He has killed before. It's not like he's never killed before. So it's not fear that is at issue here. What is at issue? But what's the issue? Moha. Attachment is at issue. He feels very attached. Moha, entanglement is at issue. It is not that he's afraid to fight. Is that clear? Look, battles of life, fear comes after. There is always this sense of entanglement, attachment. Trying to preserve what's me and mine leads to fear. Are we clear? Fear is not at stake here. All right. Aparna, you have a question. Go ahead. And then Alan, you after. Unmute yourself, Aparna.
Now I can speak.
Please.
Isn't war a situation where these kind of feelings and emotions will arise? I agree that it may be too emotional in a normal situation when we make decisions in life. But isn't his emotions kind of a normal feeling at when there's war around the world? Don't we feel, even when we are not involved, there is war going on in the world, don't we feel a war is unnecessary and so much bloodshed when we are not even directly related?
Saying, right? But that's not what he's saying. That's the whole point. He's not saying war and bloodshed and violence is unnecessary. What is he saying? I don't mind all that. I just don't want to kill my own people. That for him is normal, but he's not really talking against war and bloodshed and violence. That's clear so far for all of you? Mm-hmm. That's not what his issue is. It's true what you're saying, but that is not Arjun's issue. Alan, go ahead, please.
Okay, so you said that when we get in crisis, we make the choices extreme to eliminate fear. Is it the fear of making the wrong choice?
Yes. See, it's interesting. For others, we will say it's not so crystal clear. Don't be so hard on yourself. You don't need to be so black and white. But when we ourselves are in crisis or trying to solve for something, reach a solution, we categorize our choices into right and wrong, black and white. If I do this, then all this will happen, so I better do this. There's no middle ground. And in doing that, what we're really saying, what's really going on underneath, is we don't want to make a mistake. We're afraid to fail. We're afraid that the choice we make will not be the right one. We're not willing to say, okay, let me go for it and see what happens. We're not clear. Am I clear? Am I answering your question?
Yes.
We have to be understanding and remember, like, okay, it's not so black and white. I don't need to be so hard on myself. Let me look at the situation and do the best I can and move forward. Again, I say Arjun is in an extreme situation. He's at war. He's about to kill his own people potentially if he chooses to do that, right?
So is the fear of failure from the ego?
Yes. When we're clear, we go for it. Even if we don't succeed, we're okay. It's when we're not clear, when we don't own what we have to do, then even when we succeed, we still have regret going on. Should I have? I don't know if it was the best thing. I don't know if it was the right thing. Clear? Are we clear? This is human nature. It's our mind. And we're learning through the Gita to navigate, at least to become conscious, which is what Arjun's doing. He's headed towards Brahmagyan. He's now becoming an awakened seeker. He's saying there's more to life than what I see. He doesn't realize it. Slowly, Lord Krishna is going to take him to that place. Right now, he's got a question in the question basket, and the answers will come. And as he evolves, Lord Krishna will take him a little further, until we get to the end where the door opens fully to say, all right, now there's more. What are you going to do? Yeah. Someone else had a question. Next. Megashri, and then I'll come to you. Yeah. Go ahead. Megashri, unmute yourself.
Am I muted now?
Yes.
Okay, so all the while I was listening, I was interpreting this as Arjuna saying all of this because of not moha, but of prema. And now it could be moha. Now, what's arising in my mind is when I'm making decisions and coming up with all these reasonings in my life, am I making it out of prema or moha? Or how do I differentiate that?
Well, first of all, prema means
Love?
love, connection versus attachment. They're the same coin, dear. Most of us do not love without conditions. The moment there are conditions, you have attachment. It's the same difference. It's which direction are you looking at it? Are we clear? It's not very different. Look, even within love, there's always something in it for yourself. There's a certain place between parent and child where it's unconditional, up to a certain age. Those of you who are parents, yes? But once children reach a certain age, now they have to earn and deserve the love that you're giving. It becomes to some degree conditional. You will protect them, you will support them, but if they misbehave, if they want to do whatever they want to do at a certain age, you will draw a line. Is that true? Yes?
True.
So that's not love that we're talking about. Love as an emotion is not the conversation that is going to lead us down this road with Arjun. It's attachment, it's entanglement, it's mine. I had, recently someone was talking to me about something, a situation where it's a very tough situation. The mother is dealing with a child with autism. And she was basically saying, I've lost faith in the divine, in the guru, in God, since I've had this child who's autistic. So my question was, did you know of autism before you had this child? And the answer was yes. Did you know what it does? The answer is yes. At that time, did you have faith and trust in the divine? Yes. So what has changed now? Are you catching on to what I'm saying? It's how come I have a child that has autism? There's certain kind of attachment, entanglement that happens in that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a very, very tough situation, but I have gotten involved. It's not autism is a problem. It's I have a child with autism. I have no faith in divine. Are you clear? Yeah. One person here, and then I'll come back.
You mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned about the consciousness. Bhima did not have that consciousness, whereas Arjuna had that divided consciousness. Could you talk a little bit more about it? Was he more attached? Was he more sensitive? And Bhima was not. So
I can't answer their state of mind as in more attached or not, but if we look at Bhim, he's seen as a little bit more of a more raw in terms of a human being, right? Like, what's Bhim's character? He's brawn, he's muscle, raw character. So he's not, and Duryodhana is also similar. He's arrogant. He's just like there's not much refined in those two characters. Bhima and Duryodhana are a little bit more unconscious. They're a little bit more people who operate from conditioning, autopilot, if you will. Whereas Arjun is a more thought process person. He looks, he explores, he's asking questions. Yeah. Yes.
So in this, we say Arjuna was brought up as a warrior, right? So he's brought up with certain belief system and this is right, this is wrong. So isn't it right when he questions in the battlefield because whatever is happening there is totally going against his sense of right and wrong and
Well, you know what? If it was totally going against his sense of right and wrong, he wouldn't be in the middle of the battlefield. He had plenty of opportunity to have a conscience. He hasn't done it. He's shown up there. It's when you get to having to make a decision in life, that's suddenly when everything opens up to you. That's what I mean by he's facing a crisis. He was going along, and we kind of move to where we have to go, and then you actually get to the moment. Hasn't that happened to you? You arrive and then you go, oh my God, what am I doing? It's kind of like buyer's remorse on a small, very small level. You research, and then you get the house you want and you put down, and then you say, oh, Maitri, did we do the right thing? I don't know. Don't you have that? It's when you get to but the beauty that I'm pointing to here is in those moments of crisis, we now have doors that open. This is where the light can come through the crack. Are you with me? So it's not to be seen as a negative thing. It's the opportunity. Every crisis can lead us towards the Lord, towards our higher, greater self, or it can keep us stuck in autopilot. At any given moment, this opportunity is always there. And that's the beauty. Yeah? Okay, lots of questions here. Anuja, please go ahead. And then,
Yes,
yeah.
Diti, I understand that how we circumvent around what exactly we want, we cover ourselves. That pattern, though we see in ourselves, we see in others too, in a near and dear ones too. But when we tend to speak up, I think it strains a relationship to a certain extent. I mean, not to each and every one, but to your closest one, say your spouse. And we can clearly see the motive behind and covering up and all that, and shows goody self. The same in me too.
Wait a minute. So now what you're doing is exactly what Arjun is doing. Let me. First of all, you're being a goody about you, like caring for all others are doing. You're here for you. How does this apply to you instead of others are doing? Do you see? You're exactly doing what Arjun is doing. Something that we're discussing here is striking home for you. You're starting to see somewhere within yourself, oh yeah, I do that. We all do, by the way. Me, you, all of us here and everybody online, we all do it. But what are you doing? Just what Arjun said. Deflect the conversation onto other people. Those people, how can we do that to them? And how can... Yes, your near and dear ones might do that, but I'm not talking to them. You are here. So just like Arjun is not showing up as a warrior in front of a battlefield, but the nephew is showing up. Who is showing up right now? You, the person, or you, the wife, or the mother, or whoever you're talking about. It's important to self-reflect. Don't go into saving other people. It's about ourself here. Are we clear?
Yes.
And it's, what you share is very beautiful because the point is made. It's so easy. The mind is so tricky. It really finds the simplest, quickest way to slither away. No? So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Vera.
Yes.
Okay.
You
Hi,
know,
sorry.
what you're telling me today is really making me wonder about one's decision-making process. Why say one, my decision-making process? I've faced different crises in my life because I've lived 70 years. So, but every time you have to, even though you're clear about something, you have to take other input.
No problem.
And when you take that input, you make a decision, And then later on, you can have some remorse about it, or you can say, that's the best thing I could do. Or maybe you can say, next time I'll have to think more clearly. But how do I know when I'm thinking clearly? How do I know I'm making an excuse? How do I, that's very hard in a crisis situation to figure out what is really the right thing to do and what is the process that's making me make that decision. Is that correct?
But again, you see, you're saying right thing to do. Oh, there might be remorse, or we might reflect. Yeah, that's part of life.
Mm.
That's part of the journey of life. Once again, you're saying, I don't want to make mistakes. I want to categorize it into two places. Nothing wrong, take input.
Mm.
And how will you know you made the best choice? Only when you act. That's it.
Mhm.
The only way out for Arjun is to act, either get off the battlefield or pick up the bow and arrow. That is the only two choices left. See, you're looking in hindsight. We know what happens at the end, correct? 18 days later, we know what happened.
Mhm.
You know, who won the war.
Mhm.
But if you hearing this for the first time, we don't know what happens.
Mhm.
Step by step, the Lord will take him, but even till the very end, we do not know what will happen.
Mhm.
It's not like Arjun's been told, don't worry, if you fight, you'll win. Don't worry. Lord Krishna could have ended this entire conversation in the very first sentence.
Mm.
Could have emphasized his light, his greatness, and said, listen, do what I tell you. Don't ask questions. He could have done that, correct? Did he do that? No. That's not what's going on. Even until the very end, 700 verses later, we have no idea of the result. It could go in any direction and anything could happen. Don't presume something that is not known at this time. We know that the Pandavas win, quote, win, but Arjun doesn't know that. He doesn't know that, not at all. Not ever does the Lord say you will win if you fight. Yes? Okay, Sneha, go ahead. The point is, uncertainty is part of the equation of choice and action.
I had a question.
Guarantee.
So,
Yeah.
so Bhim and Yudhishthir are very clear in their mind and they know what to do if they'll just go for the war, is what you're saying, right, earlier. Whereas Arjun is in a divided consciousness. What's a better way to live life? Is
Better
it
than what are the
what
two choices?
what is a better way to live life? Is it just being clear about everything that you want to do and just going for it, or like, reflecting on whether it's right or wrong?
Well, they're not contradictory. Getting clear and going for it, step one, and then step two. Once you're clear, you have to go for it. You have to act. So I think your question needs to get refined. What you really want to know is, do I take action when I have a divided mind anyway? Or do I wait to be clear? That's really your question.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So ask it next time. Sushma, go. Go. Unmute, beta.
Jai Gurudev Didi.
Jai Gurudev.
When I have to make decisions like should I buy this home, should I take this job, I got used to like asking Gurudev for everything and every single thing. How to get out of this habit?
I mean, is he answering your questions?
Yeah, sometimes directly, sometimes subtle ways, definitely.
Well, listen, if you're blessed enough to have, just like Arjun, Krishna guiding you, go for it. But what are you really asking me?
I feel like
I don't want to ask Guruji questions and he gives me the opportunity. What are you really asking me?
I feel right now like I'm asking him because I'm kind of avoiding taking responsibility for my own decisions and avoiding regretting later or owning my own decisions later. That is on one side. And on the other side, it's like he knows the entire big picture and I want to make sure I'm in alignment with
I want to tell you
my
something.
higher.
But wait a minute, just like Lord Krishna is not letting Arjun slide from his choice and therefore his responsibility, are we all together on this? The same is true with Gurudev. It might appear like he is. You might be being a super great Arjun and convincing yourself that that's what's happening, but that is not the case. Never, not one time does Krishna say to Arjun, do this. He keeps taking one more question, one more question. Why? Because Arjun is sincere. He is trapped. He has a dilemma. He's really overwhelmed with this choice. And he keeps asking the question, keeps asking the question. And the Lord keeps guiding him to his own choice. You know, somebody doesn't make the decision, you can surrender, which is what Arjun does at the end, to say, okay, meaning the why and I should and all the reasoning and the justification, the small mind, the ego that was pumping away, at some point relaxes. That's a different story. But actually, he's not getting an answer from anybody but himself when he picks up the gun dive. Okay, Hitesh, go ahead.
Namaste, Didi. I was thinking Arjun is currently in the state of me and mine, but I believe he should be following his dharma. So, in today's world, what are the dharmas and what are their order of operations, like their sequence we should be following when we are in such situation?
Well, no, see, you're asking a question that's really very generic in a way. When you're a father, your dharma would be one thing versus when you're a son or a brother. Again, you must listen to what I'm saying. What role is required of you? In that role, you have to see what you need to do. You can't answer that question generically. Are we clear? It's not what is my dharma. As a son, as a daughter, as a wife, as a sister, as a citizen, as a devotee, it's different things. But we don't keep clear in our roles. We confuse all of those things. And the reason I think we confuse it partly is because we then don't have to make a choice and therefore be responsible for the consequence of our choice. Because we don't want to make a mistake. We want to get it right the first time. Why do we want to get it right the first time? So that others can appreciate that we got it right the first time. So that we can say, I don't make mistakes. See, I did it right. I did well. So that those who are mine can also say, very good. Let me take a question from the group here. And there's just two more online. So I will take those two. Somebody had a hand up. Yes.
Did when I have to take a decision, because like, let's say, even though I'm in a dilemma, I might just do some judgment about, okay, this is right and this is not wrong. This is wrong. But at the same time, it's still, I'm not really sure. The reason I don't take the decision is because of if I'm going to go through a lot of stress, I'm going to put my people at stake. So to me, how do I get that light or to that guidance to say that, okay, even though my mind is clear, but if I step forward for a better decision or whatnot, I'm putting myself at a little bit of stress, and at the same time, someone else is at stress. How do I do that fine line to say that, yeah, I can take this decision, this is how much risk I can take, or this is how much.
Okay, Arjun. Doesn't it sound just like Arjun? Yes or no? But what would be the answer?
I don't know.
No, what's the answer at the end of this whole thing?
I'm just not really from this one.
No, but see, you want certainty of result before you take the decision. Do you not see that's what we all do? You want a certainty of the result prior to taking action or declaring the choice. And I'm saying to you, Arjun did not have any idea. He was in the same level of uncertainty that you might be experiencing about something. Should I take the risk? Remember, his arguments are not nonsense. There is going to be a consequence to the people. There will be death. We can annihilate whole families. All those things are real in the sense that the arguments are not nonsense. It is a potentiality of a consequence of going to war, correct? He doesn't have an answer. The thing that holds everybody back, the difference between someone who succeeds and thrives and someone who just gets by is one thing. What is it?
Being okay with
Indecision. They act and they move. They don't wait in their head or in time and space to find certainty. They do some amount of due diligence. They do some research. They do prepare. I'm saying Arjun has come to the battlefield. He is already prepared. He knows how to fight. He's tried all that he can to make ends meet, meaning peace. Lord Krishna has gone 3 times to bring peace. Everything's been tried. Nothing is working. They asked for 5 little villages. And what is Duryodhana's answer? I will not even give you enough for a needle, point of a needle. That much land I will not give you. So everything has been tried. There's no certainty here. And he has as much to risk for himself or the family as you're talking about, his family. But in the end, he has to do what? Act. He has to make a decision. And the problem is we wait for certainty. In spite and after doing all the due diligence, we still think, we process. The only difference, as I say again to you, the difference between the drashra, meaning conditioned mind, and the light is, in the light, Lord Krishna says, act, act, act. Don't worry about the result. And in your question, what are you worried about? In Arjun's query, what is he worried about? Result. Everything he points out is about the result, the result, the result. That's what's freaking him out. And it may or may not happen. There's no way out but through. Understand this sentence. If you don't act, you don't get out. You remain in that crisis congestion. One more comment on it.
In this situation, in that case, having a guru, how does it help that, hey, this is the direction that I have to move forward? In this case, in Arjun's case, Krishna is guiding you pretty closely. For us as a seeker, or in my regular life, how do I know, hey, okay, I have to act for sure, but
How can God prevent me from making a mistake?
Mistake is fine, but not a bigger mistake.
No, but wait a minute. Listen, if you want to prevent yourself from making a mistake, what does that mean?
You want to play safe.
Yeah, but you're invested and attached to the direction that you want. You're not willing to be open to see where your action takes you. You want a certain result. This is an enormous amount of attachment. It's called moha. Are you hearing what I'm saying?
I'm looking for direction, not
No, I'm telling you the direction is act.
Okay.
That's the direction. But you're not hearing it because it's Arjun giving me, stanza number 37, 38, 39, 40. Yes? Okay. I think you could hear all of that. Could you? Yeah. All right. Let me take Suvarna, you have your hand up. Then
Yes,
yeah.
yes, Didi. Didi, as you said just a few minutes back that you got a question from a lady whose son was autistic, and yeah, you said it's not his disease, but the feeling that why me? So even my son is also autistic, and I also have this question: why me? And I know that I will be, I'm taking a lot of actions, and I'm taking him to a lot of direct doctors and everywhere, and we are giving him the required treatment. But still I feel I did everything when I was pregnant, and why I have this? I was doing silence courses, I was doing my kriya regularly, and I still have this question. Why I have this kind of a situation?
But this is not an answerable question. You see what you're saying is I did all those things so that I would not have a kid that has autism. It's not like that. It was not like that. In the moment, you were doing the programs and doing all that you had to do, and it's serving you in a way that's not known to you. Don't get me wrong. The challenges that you as a parent have to take, I empathize and fully can understand where you're coming from. But asking the question, why me, is just taking away from what you have to do in life. Why me? Don't worry about it. Maybe it's just so you could be of service to this soul. Can you just see it that way? The soul in this body is asking you to serve. That's it. Perhaps the soul in this body is saying you have much more than you ever realized possible. The strength, the commitment, the focus, the energy. It's much more than you ever realized possible. Maybe it's just because, maybe there's no reason for it even. I don't have an answer, but I'm saying you also will never find an answer. It's how it is. And we let it go and we move forward. And then you invite a lot of positivity and blessing in asking why. We're not allowing the grace to pour through. Understand?
Yes.
Blessings. Okay, Kulpreet, you're next, and then I come.
So, Didi, the story that was shared about Dronacharya, Eklavya, and Arjun. So, as a guru, how can your love be more for one student and the other student is more capable? Still, you chose to bias towards the student just because you have given your word. So, was that correct as a guru for Drona to do?
Well, luckily I'm not him. And luckily we don't have that situation. You can't take a moment and categorize a whole thing. It's a moment. We don't know why. We don't know how. We can only look at the circumstance and wonder about it and think, well, yeah, Dronacharya gave a promise. And so therefore and then looking at it from that place, we would say this is not okay. But what Gurudev says is, you see, he elevated Dronacharya's action, consciously or unconsciously, knowingly or not, elevated Eklavya to be the highest. He became a devotee versus a great archer. Understand? Look, events are irrelevant. Even let's look at this. We don't remember Mahabharata for Mahabharata. The reason we talk about Mahabharata is because of the Bhagavad Gita. The knowledge, the wisdom, that remains, that's eternal. Everything else is a passing event, including this crisis that Arjun's in. If not for Bhagavad Gita, I don't think we would talk so much about the Pandavas and Duryodhana and la 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 la. Do you understand? Events, characters, moments, this is what we latch on to, and this is what we hold on to, and we develop an entire persona around a moment. But remember what we're discussing here. It's the wisdom, it's the knowledge which is eternal. Not the events, not the characters. So don't lock into those things, no? Yeah. Yes.
Is it Arjuna was indecisive during when he was supposed to act and at that in the war place, right? So is it that having indecisive thoughts, it's not that having indecisive thoughts is not correct, but you have to act when it's time to act. Is that the
Well,
gist of it?
clearly in the middle of the battlefield, it's not now about due diligence, correct? It's time for action. The choice has actually been made. But it's again what I said, sometimes when we get right close to where we're going to go, then everything cracks open. Look, there's in a certain way, Arjun is also reflecting on all his actions. He's not saying like in the past, I did this, but that's what's coming up. As a warrior, if I kill, if this happens, if there's a war, this is what goes on. He's now questioning the world he's been living in through this moment. Do you understand what I'm saying? This moment is a moment where he's now questioning his role as a warrior in his life. He's going to evolve. He's moving from mind towards end of mind. And then you end in Brahmagyan. He's moving towards a state of surrender. He's going to navigate his life outside of the mind at some point. But that's when the Gita ends. Are you with me? So it's not, you mustn't see this as a one-time thing. If, you know, you suddenly like, okay, you're doing whatever, computer, and then at some point you buy a business, at some point you sell a business, and then when you sell a business, you go home, and then you have somehow this letdown, and you start to quit. I don't know, did I do the right thing? I bought a company, I sold a company. What have I been doing my whole life is starting to come up in Arjun's consciousness, whether we see it or not. That's what's going on. It's much bigger than just this. This is the trigger to the big picture of his life, what he's been doing. And that happens to us. That's a blessing, though. Now we're going to turn inward. Now Arjun's going to turn inward. He's going to see something more than war and kingdom and all that sort of thing. Yes? Okay. Two last questions, and then we end. Sandeep, your question.
Did we talk about multiple hats? Does it lead to duplicity, multiplicity? And is it right or wrong, or how much? So what should be the goal? To minimize the behaviors, or to keep them very distinct depending on who you are dealing with?
I know that you think I'm smart, but I'm so not smart to figure out that question.
Oh, sorry. So for example, like we talked about, like you're talking to your son, you have to behave in a different way. You're talking to your wife, you're talking different way. You're talking to Didi, you're behaving in a different way, right? That leads to duplicity or multiplicity of the same character. So
Well, that's interesting. Let's pause there for a second. Let's assume, you know, you're a person, one person,
yeah,
male. But then you're also a father, correct? And a son, and a husband, and a devotee, and a mentor. There's like, so are there 7 of you?
so the behavior is different in those 7.
Oh, wait a minute, but are there 7 of you?
No.
No. But Chintan, like we worry for all 7 roles, even when we're not in those 7 roles at any given moment. Yes? Do you guys understand what I just said? Do you understand what I'm saying? So there, it's what your interesting question is leading to: duplicity, multiplicity, and all those plicities that you mentioned.
Yes, yes.
Yes. But what I'm suggesting, I think what is suggested in the Gita, we haven't gotten to it yet, but certainly what Gurudev suggests to us in our Part 1 course, Art of Living course, is about being 100%.
Right.
Where, when, and how, who. At any given moment, right now as we're talking, who has to show up here? A devotee or a seeker, correct?
Yeah.
A seeker. That's who has to show up here. But if while you're sitting here, you're also showing up for your wife and you're thinking about it as, well, my wife should hear this, this would be good for her. Or my son, if my son were to hear this, then he could make a better decision about which job he should take or not. Then what is happening? It's not 100%. So in this moment, when, now, where, in this situation on Zoom, who should show up? The seeker.
Seeker.
That's it. If you can just take that, and then when you close the Zoom and you go sit down at the dinner table or whatever you're going to do, then you leave the seeker. Don't be an advisor also. Don't be a teacher also. Who should show up at the dinner table? the family member, the husband or the father or head of household, depending on what conversation's going on. But what do? That's not what we do. We go to the dinner table and say, you should have been there. This is a problem. It's a problem for you and the person in front of you and the poor guru. And sometimes Didi. Do you understand? Are we clear? This is a very simple mathematical, sort of pragmatic equation or solution. Show up who you are and what you need to be in that moment. Where, when, and who matter in any given moment. Yes? Okay. I think that's enough. Are we done? Oh, one more. You're praying, yes. Okay. Go ahead, Mukul. Last one.
Yeah, so my question is, earlier you mentioned that Arjun is at the brink of the war and the choice is made for him, but now he's getting all confused. All these new questions and things are opening up in his consciousness, and Krishna is driving him towards more clarity. What if you're a little bit earlier, where you're actually not, the choice is not made for you, and everything is, let's say, 50-50. And so you also mentioned now the only way you would know is to act, to take action. What if you're at a stage where you're so confused that you really don't know which is the right action at this in this moment? What do you do in that case? And the more you investigate, more you get confused in that. So
Okay,
what to
first
do
of
at the
all, choice Arjun made. It's not that it was made for him, right? He and his bros made this choice to go to war, okay? And the conch shells have blown, which means war has begun. Everybody blew their conch shells, okay? And then he asked the Lord, take me in the middle so that I can see what's going on. Okay, so that's one thing. What is the right choice? You already said you have to choose. If you're very confused, the guru would say, take a pillow and go to bed. Focus on something else until you find clarity. You can't force a choice. That's not what we're talking about. That is not, is that clear? We're not talking about forcing a choice. I'm saying that we procrastinate a choice that is clear. And sometimes we create confusion because we do not want the responsibility, the consequence of the choice. Sometimes we need more time, but more often than not, you will discover that we make stories around, I need more research, I need more resources, I need to talk to an expert. It didn't work the last time, so it might not work this time, but there's so many other possibilities and so many. So we endlessly, I know people who have taken 10 years to make a decision. I had somebody on my course, part 1 course, 10 years, he and a partner who lives in San Francisco and he lives in Los Angeles, they've been talking about an idea to open up a business, 10 years. And then he did a certain process, if then. And then I called him out on it. Really, what are you waiting for? 3 weeks later, he sent an email saying, we've decided, we've gone for it. Thank you so much. There's a lot of freedom. You understand? And when you're weaving stories to avoid and when you're looking to get clarity to go further, we do know. We know. Remember that lady who could see the friends and the family? The earlier question? You know, and I bet you your friends and family know also. They also say, oh my God, I've heard this like 10 times. When are you going to do something about it? Don't people say that? Yeah. If you're hearing that, that's probably a good sign that you're ready to act and you're not. If somebody around you who really knows you and says, oh my God, I've heard this before, come on, get on it, Mukul, just do it and end it. Maybe. Yes? Okay. Are we done? Okay, go.
It's a different question. So a lot of questions that were asked today, what I noticed, it were slightly different than what this chapter 1 was, right? And a lot of times when we go through this wisdom, we try to relate our life crisis or challenges to whatever wisdom we are getting to see if we can find any answer. So my question to you, after going through so many years of Gita or such wisdom, how do you ensure that your mind won't process other than what the chapter is about?
So what he's saying is the questions that were asked were different from the wisdom and the conversation that was discussed in chapter 1. And so how do you, after so many years, make sure, I forgot the last sentence, that I process according to the wisdom? So I would disagree with you in one point, which is that the questions around choices, they're not very different from what the chapter is about. We just don't know the specifics. But what I hear in their question is exactly what Arjun's doing, avoiding, trying to run from making a choice. And in the end, what Arjun does after 700 verses is he has nothing left to do but what? Act. That's it. Act. He could act and drive his chariot out, or he could stay and start the war or fight. That's the same thing that they're talking about in their questions. There's something that they're struggling with, and they're going back and forth, because they're waiting to get so clear that either they can avoid or somebody gives them a certainty or a guarantee about the result. And again, I say to you, there are no guarantees, not in crisis like this and not in the crisis that you might be facing in yourself. Does that answer your question?
Not the second part.
How do I make sure? I self-reflect. The reason I'm doing this, that I want to discuss the Bhagavad Gita, is because it gives me a greater insight on where I do the same thing. You see, if you call yourself out on it, if you own it, you get freedom. And like when I said to someone who, Sneha, I think was the person who asked the question, your question really is, if I have a divided mind, do I choose or do I wait till I get clarity? In her sort of backhand way, she wanted me to validate her choosing something that she's not yet clear about, and I'm not going to do that. And that's why I said, ask the question next time. If you call yourself out on what your mind is doing, which is what Arjun's going to get to see at some point, then you don't do those things in the same way. Then you find freedom. And I think for those of you who know me to some degree, as much as I might call you out, I call myself out. Yes or no? Of, oh, I didn't realize, and then I learned this. So the point is to self-reflect. When Arjun makes up these arguments, and when I say to you, look what he's doing, you have to say, where in my life do I do that? Right now, and when have I done that? Are you following me? If you pour water somewhere, there will be a water stain. It'll dry out. There's no more water there. Yes? When you pour water again, it tends to go towards where it was poured before. Have you observed that? Yes? This is what we do in life. We keep pouring using the same channel to do the same thing. You have to somehow find a way to dry it up and pour the water somewhere else. But we don't hold ourselves accountable. We're not willing to be very open, honest, and direct about our own stories and justifications and ego pumping and all those sort of things. Yes or no? Okay. Are you good? You know what you have to do? Reflect. Make some notes. Where do I do this to myself? How do I weave stories for myself and excuse myself from making choices and decisions? Because all that happens is you disempower yourself. That's all that happens. And life becomes more complicated. Let's just simplify it for right now. You know? Okay. Next Tuesday, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, we start chapter 2. That's pretty amazing, no? 3 sessions, not bad. Okay. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev. Blessings.